just after I finished building my parents' house, I had a head-on motorbike crash in the bush and broke both my arms.
Oh, shit.
And that brought my career to a grinding halt.
G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We are in for another cracking one this afternoon. I've been pretty keen for this one. I've been following this bloke on Instagram for a while and then actually got to meet him probably in the last 3 or 4 months when I did my Healthy Home course with Zara Dakota. So big welcome to Brad from Sanford Building, mate. How are you?
Not bad, mate. Not bad at all. Good to be here.
Yeah, mate, I appreciate you coming on. I think you've got a lot to offer. I know I definitely got a lot out. I thought, well, possibly got more out of you than I did out of the Healthy Home course. Like, you were pretty informative during that course. You know your stuff.
Yeah. I sort of, really dove deep into building a good few years ago now, and it just sort of like consumed my life, and still just trying to learn more and more every day and just trying to pass it on as much as I can.
And that's awesome. Well, I probably should confirm Zara's course is unreal. So, but yeah, Brad just had a lot of input while Zara was asking questions. But like, where's the passion come from, mate? Like, we would, well, actually, let's go back a little bit, because I think your story of how you got into the industries, I only found this out in the last few days, but you started in a wakeboard shop.
Yeah. So my parents told me that I was too smart to be a tradie and I should go to uni. So I went to uni, did event management, and it was sort of like right smack in the GFC. And so the events industry had sort of died in its ass. And I was at the time, like real keen wakeboarder, snowboarder. So was working through uni part-time at the wakeboard store and then just sort of stuck on there. And I actually had a real good customer who used to come in. Said to me one day, he's like, "Oh, you're living the dream." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not really, because every weekend when you come in here to buy stuff for your boat, I'm in here working." And he's like, "No, that's no good." He goes, "Come and work for me." And I was like, "Yeah, sweet, no dramas." And he actually blew his knee out. And so like got put on the back burners for a little bit. I sort of didn't think too much of it. And then, he popped back up and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And by that stage, I was well over, retail. And he's like, "Yeah, come and work for me." And I was like, happy days. So chucked on a tool belt and started slapping up frames.
So what is that how you got your apprenticeship?
Yeah. Well, actually at the start, he was real like grumpy old wog, and he's like, "I don't want an apprentice, but, come and just labour, I'll pay you, I'll teach you." He just couldn't be bothered with all the rigmarole of apprenticeships and stuff. And I actually had another mate from the same wakeboard store that had left and gone to work for a builder as an apprentice chippy, and he was doing on-site training. And after about 6 months, I'd convinced my boss. I was like, "Hey, let me do on-site training." And he was like, "Yeah, no dramas." So I did my apprenticeship that way.
Yeah, awesome. So, like, I find all this stuff really interesting. Now I'm all about the stories you tell yourself and the bad habits and stuff you break. So, like, how did you shift that mindset from your parents telling you that you're too smart to be a tradie, and then obviously you've done it now and you're very, very good at it? So,
look, being an academic was never for me, so I always struggled, in that regard. Like, it just wasn't anything that I was passionate about. I was always sort of passionate about anything that was hands-on. Like, I was super passionate when I was at the wakeboard store, all the tech with all the product and all that sort of stuff. But I just was, more about, like relationships that way, and sort of actually doing something, whether that was, like doing an activity like wakeboarding, snowboarding or whatever, or doing something with your hands. And like all my mates from high school were all tradies, and we sort of I started my apprenticeship, I think I was like 22, 23. So by that stage, like, my mates are qualified, making good money. Actually, like, one of my best mates was building a cabin in a caravan park. So we used to, go up there and work on the cabin. And I was like, this is actually like wicked fun. So then, when I got offered a carpentry apprenticeship, I was like, it's no brainer. Just jumped at it. And by that stage, my parents had well and truly realised that I probably wasn't pursuing another career. My mum was probably devo about it at the time, but I actually built mum and dad a house a couple of years ago, and they absolutely froth it. So I think they see the benefit in being a tradie now.
No, that's unreal. So, but like you've got a real passion for it now, and you've stepped outside the box a bit, haven't you? Because you obviously got on board with the passive house stuff, and you're really into the mold and the healthy home type stuff. So what's driven that passion to, I guess, think outside the box and not do just what every other builder does?
Look, probably a lot of it's like to do with my own mental health. So like the dude that I worked for, we mostly did bargain basement development work, so we worked with the worst people that you could work with, you know what I mean? Apart from him, like he's still one of my best mates to this day. And he was real passionate, like just old school, self-taught, and he sort of was, I guess, getting to the end of his tether with the industry. He actually builds caravans now. So yeah, I sort of just saw a side where he was real passionate about what he did and did a good job, but no one else around us did. And so like that was real hard because obviously I loved my job. And it was like, well, my job's so difficult because all these other people don't care. And then I started working for a developer who was just doing like reno projects and stuff like that. And then we did one and a window leaked. And I was like beside myself because I'm like, man, like I try my hardest to do the best job ever. And, like I make sure everything's spot on. And like we went backwards and forwards. It turns out that it was a timber window and the company that manufactured them put no fall on the sill. So like the water would just pull up on the sill and then drain back inside the house. But yeah, this was a while ago. This is probably like 6 years ago. And I'd been going to America a fair bit, like in their summertime to go wakeboarding. Yeah. So I'd started like being exposed to like their building industry over there. I actually had a mate who's a builder in Atlanta, Georgia. And then, sort of came across like Matt Reisinger and then, watched a few of like his really early YouTube videos. And then I was like, man, we do shit so wrong. And then from there, I was just like, all right, well, I don't want to have to go back and fix any jobs. Like, what can I do to not have to fix stuff? And sort of just like push from there. And then I just got to a point where I couldn't push my clients anymore. Like they weren't really interested in passive house stuff or whatever. And I tried to get a couple of them over the line. I actually did a job, like wrapped it all in Pro Climber, and I just put the bill for all the labor. I just said to them, if you buy the wrap and the tapes or whatever, like I'll just go full send, just to sort of give it a whirl. And then, after that, my parents were keen to move. And I just said as a passing comment, I was like, oh, I'll build you a house. And no shit, 30 days later, my mum and dad's house is on the market. They've bought a block of land and they're like, yeah, we're building a house. And so dove into building their house, which was awesome because I pretty much had like full control over like how it would be detailed and how it would be built.
Yeah. So when you like, just to go back, so when you say people were doing shit all wrong, like was that other trades on site, or was it like you couldn't get clients to spend the money on the right stuff? Like what do you mean by that?
Oh, so like initially, like early on, obviously working for like lower end developer type of builders, a lot of like what I call an armchair builder, like you never saw the person you were building for, as all they cared about was the cheapest price. Obviously that comes with the cheapest trades, and you just were constantly, you'd roll up to start a frame and like the slabs miles out of square or up and down, and you just were like constantly chasing your tail. And it's like, well, my job's so hard because no one else gives a shit. How do I get myself to where I'm surrounded by people that give a shit?
Yeah, and that's really common in our industry, isn't it? And again, I put it out there all the time. Like it's driven by the volume builder market. Like everything's just low rates and massive turnover, and just smash out the same home 100 times. Like there's very little checks or supervision in between things. Like I know back in the day when I was doing that type of work, there was nothing to turn up to throw a frame up, and you'd mark it out to be out of square, but then one edge of the slab might be 200 mil short or something, and the builder's like, well, just fucking deal with it, just make the house smaller. Like, fuck, come on. Like,
that was honestly like, it's like, oh, we'll bring this wall in 20 mil, we'll do this, we'll do that, and you just were constantly putting out spot fires. I'm like,
Yeah.
Why don't you just run a tape measure over the fucking boxing before you pour the slab and make sure it's sweet? Like,
Yeah, people
I
don't
didn't.
know. Like people don't know what they're getting, do they? Like
Yeah,
it's a big passion of mine now. I really feel for, like, obviously everything's driven by dollars, and people can only afford what they can afford. But even though people can only afford what they can afford, they should be getting the best product they can for that. And like
yeah,
these scenarios you and I are talking about, like there'd be plenty of people out there that are living in houses that, if they actually ran a tape over them, that aren't what they paid for. Rooms are smaller, or rooms are out of square, or there's products that haven't been installed because they can't see them behind the walls, or all that type of shit.
yeah. But it's like, yeah, some of the stuff I've seen, especially in the volume game. So like my old boss didn't work Fridays. We only worked 4 days a week. And as an apprentice, I couldn't afford to work 4 days a week. And one of my best mates is a plasterer. So I used to plaster on Fridays and Saturdays to, get a bit of extra coin. And
Yeah,
one of the things we used to do was, for like one of the volume builders, we used to do all the patches. And like some of the things you see patch and volume houses is like, it's honestly disgusting. Like it make you sick.
give us some examples.
Oh, like I've seen water damaged garage ceilings, like, where they've sheeted the whole house with no ridge capping on, all the plaster's saturated. Just get another sheet of plaster, put it over the top, just use 40 mil screws, screw through the whole lot. Way you
Yeah,
go. We did a house where they hadn't run any of the lines for the splitties. And so they just cut holes in the walls everywhere. There was heaps of other stuff. I watched an electrician one day to fit off the batten holder lights, walk into the room with a broomstick and just smash the broomstick straight up where he thought was dead center of the room, and that's where the batten holder went. Like I've honestly, like I could go on for days and days and days. The stuff that I've seen, like, yeah,
but isn't it, like a lot of it comes from that mentality, isn't it? That's how the industry is. Just deal with it. Like, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like, if all these tradies that did this volume work actually stood up for themselves and realised that there's a better way to do things, and there's actually lots of us custom builders out there that will pay for the right job.
yeah. I think there's just a lot of trades out there that are probably a trade because the opposite of me, who was told you're too smart to be a trade, they're told you're too dumb to do anything else.
Yeah,
Just do a trade, and they're probably not that passionate about it, and it's just, they sort of get stuck in that cycle, and it is really toxic in that environment. Like no one else cares. It's so hard for you to care. Like it's such a beat down.
yeah. When
Like
you
I nearly got, yeah, I legitimately nearly packed it in because I was like, I can't keep doing this. I hate it. And,
yeah,
it was just at that point, I had started to build my socials and started to network with like better builders. And by that stage, I'd cracked the shits completely. And I was like, I'm just going to be a builder and do it myself the way I want to do it.
yeah,
But I probably would have stayed a carpenter for a little bit longer had I had that network when I first became a builder earlier. I would have happily stayed, being a carpenter for all these great builders that I know now.
yeah. Yeah. So what was that the main driver for you to getting your builder's license, or you just want to be able to deliver better quality projects and have more control over things?
Yeah, like I did a really big owner builder project, like it was probably like 2.5 mil, and I project managed it for him. He was a commercial builder, and this was just his house. And I had some really good experiences there when I was able to hand pick trades. And then there was other times where he's like, oh, I can get this other plasterer in and save $5,000. And then I just would be dealing with headaches. And I'm like, at the end of the day, he would have been paying me more than that $5,000 to fix shit than just paying it, and I could have trucked on with something else. And I was like, the only way I'm going to be able to actually control these situations is if I'm in the driver's seat. And I was literally at that job. I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was one day and I was like, I'm done. And I rang up like a company that helps you get your DBU down here in Melbourne. And I was like, I paid the money over the phone straight away and started the process like right there.
Well, that's the only way to be, isn't it? When you can control the outcomes of everything, that's the best solution. But yeah, again, it's horrible that people aren't getting what they're paying for, and yeah, like they just don't know what they don't know, do they? Like,
yeah, and like until you're exposed to, like a different side of things, like if you're in that same, like if you've grown up in like a housing estate and everyone lives in a volume house and the quality of all their houses are the same, and that's all you're like, oh well, this is just what it is.
But even with the price, even with the pricing stuff, like you said, that guy was trying to save some money here and there. Like you hear it all the time. Like, but clients don't, if they haven't had experience in our game, which most of them haven't, they think it's that simple. They think it's just, get a price off 5 plasterers and pick the cheapest one, or 5 Sparkies, whatever it is. But every trade is like, it's no different than them choosing a builder. Like every trade that we use, it has the same scenario. Like you go with the cheapest price, you get what you pay for. So like, there's a reason why, like I tell all people all the time, like there is a reason why things cost what they cost. If you get multiple prices and one of them's substantially lower than the others, like that is because it will be shit. It'll be run shit. The supervision will be shit. The trades will be shit. Like the materials will be shit. Like it's not that the other builders are making shitloads more money. It's just that builder is not doing what he should be doing.
Yeah, I've actually done 2 projects that we took over from builders going broke, and both the same story. Oh yeah, we got prices that 4 builders were within 50 grand of each other, and one was 150K cheaper. We went with them.
Yeah,
and it's like, how is that not like a huge red flag or massive alarm bells that one person is like a massive outlier compared to everyone else?
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. But mate, you've obviously managed to turn things around. Like you're running a really good show now. I love the stuff you put on your socials, doing some quality work. But like obviously you did the Healthy Home course, you're doing other courses. Like how important do you think it is for tradies and builders to educate themselves and learn more and look at, and even if they're not going to put it into practice, like just take in what our industry has to offer?
Oh, it's like when I first started learning stuff, and like I did my apprenticeship with a guy who I thought, geez, this guy's, and like quality workmanship, that sort of stuff. Like he's honestly phenomenal. Like the amount of stuff I've learned off this bloke is, like crazy. But then like certain things, like I remember a job I did it with a mate of mine actually, and all the cladding swelled because we didn't seal any end cuts. And at that time, I'd never even heard of a data sheet or a spec sheet for a product. Oh, it was just like, you're the chippy, stuff shows up on site, you work out whatever fixings you've got in the trailer and you whack it up, and like we had done a grouse job of installing it in terms of like it was straight and plumb and, everything aesthetically looked amazing. But the one thing that made the job fail was we needed to just pick up a brush and seal the end cuts before we installed it, which none of us knew. The builder never told us, whatever. And I was like, fuck, like, at the end of the day, it was me and my mate back there ripping it down and replacing it.
Everything's got a spec sheet, eh?
Yeah, such an avoidable, really cheap solution that we just didn't know. And from then I was like, I'm not going to install anything without, knowing exactly how this product's meant to be installed. And even like, if you take away like, the passive house and all that sort of stuff, like just that basic shit, like how many people mix a product that's 2 parts and they haven't read the instructions and measured things properly? And it's...
Oh, mate, it shits me to tears. You see all these stories and stuff on Instagram and like smashing up decks and they haven't got any deck protector on their joists, or like you say, not priming the ends of timber, or like I see lots of builders on Instagram doing photos of cladding installs and stuff, and I'll just shake my head. And like I could jump on all of them and tell them what they're not doing correctly, but I'm not that type of person. But like it's that simple, eh? Like at the end of the day, every single thing that a tradie or a builder installs on site, we should, like, and these days with your phones and your iPads, like it's just a matter of jumping online, looking up a spec sheet. Like,
yeah,
it's our responsibility to make sure that everything on site's getting installed as per manufacturer specifications. Like, and as you say, like even right down to the fixings, like you have to make sure you're using the correct fixings for the product. Like, yeah, like how many times you see cladding materials getting shot on with a framing gun, or it's a mess.
Yeah, even just like like nail spacing or anything, it's like it's wild.
Yeah, it is. That's the perfect word for it. It is wild. But And I think with a lot of people that you see doing this stuff, like they don't know that they're doing it wrong. And as you said, like there's a lot of contractors out there that that's just the way they've been taught. So they're just like we're taught by people that are doing it wrong, so they just continue to do it wrong. And most builders aren't putting in enough supervision, so they just let the shit happen on site. The painter comes along, paints over everything, happy days, client moves in, and yeah, before you know it, there's issues with things. But yeah, the industry's got a lot of work to do, hasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. But like I think like what you said there, like the builder's not there supervising. I think like a big thing that I believe is like, to a huge extent, the trades need to be responsible for themselves. Like if you're doing it, you should know what the best practice is for that particular thing. It's your responsibility to know that, the substrate's prepared correctly if you're fixing to something, that you're using the right adhesive, that you're using the right fixings, And I think too many people run with the attitude of like, oh, well, someone else didn't tell me or someone else didn't set me up. No, like we're the professionals and we need to act professionally, and we need to be the ones on the front foot, regardless of, whether you're a builder, a plasterer, a painter, a tiler, whatever. Like, you need to be going in there saying, hey, this is how it has to be. And, standing up for yourself and making sure that you're doing your job correctly, regardless of, what's around you.
Well, everyone's trying to save a dollar, mate, because they haven't priced the jobs correctly to begin with. Like we definitely, like myself, my supervisor, my whole team, we're very fortunate. Like we've got an incredible bunch of contractors now, but and a lot of them bring to our attention that something that might need to be done differently, or a new product that's coming out and all those types of things. But I think one of the worst things with our industry, and a lot of the trades know it, is that currently as it stands, it's the builder's responsibility.
Yeah.
They like so many of them, like I've been told so many stories of trades that clients or even industry bodies have tried to get back to fix work, and they just laugh. It's like, fuck, try. Like it's black and white. It's all the builder's responsibility. Like those guys definitely need a kick in the ass and shouldn't be in the industry, but the reality is they are in the industry. And I think a lot of builders need to take the supervision a lot more seriously. Like you can't just rely on trades turning up and expect that they're doing the right thing. And especially when like a lot of trades these days have grown pretty substantial businesses themselves, so that like the business owner might know all the ins and outs and specs and all those types of things, but they send a new crew to a site and they stuff something up. Like there's so much going on. Like so for me, supervision is definitely a key to reducing the amount of problems, but also mitigating a lot of the risk.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's like we run pretty lean. I only really do one or two projects at a time. We do all the carpentry in-house, or, a huge chunk of it in-house. So I'm on site a lot. Like there's very rarely are there occasions where, and I make sure like when a trade starts, like I'm there to go over absolutely anything, make myself available, that, and it's taken me years to build a relationship with trades now that, they know if they come across something and they raise it with me, like I will bend over backwards to get it sorted as quick as possible so that they're not put out in any way, shape or form, and it's awesome to have that relationship now, but it does take a long time. And I think that's what catches a lot of people out as well, like chopping and changing trades and, whatever else. Sometimes it's hard for me, like, because I don't do many projects, like say a bricklayer, like I've got a really good relationship with this bricklayer, but he might do one job for me every 2 years, but I actually rang him for my next project, and last job that he did for me, he's like, oh, I'm getting out of it. And I rang him and I'm like, please tell me he's still doing it. And he thankfully he is. But like, because I don't do many projects, like I'm, often having to find new trades and sort of start that, build that trust and that relationship from scratch.
Yeah, relationships are huge, aren't they? Like I think it's one of the most important parts of running a building business. You've got to have great relationships with your trades and respect them and talk to them and pay them properly and all those types of things. And I think when you do look after them well, even though you do a few jobs a year, they're going to be there when you need them.
Yeah, 100%. And like, with the types of jobs, that I'm doing, I need the input from the trades, like as we're going through like design development, because like I can't know everything, you
Mm,
know. And so yeah, it's grouse having that relationship, especially with like the integral ones, like the electrician, like all my jobs now are on big properties like acreage, like the next one's like completely off grid, so you need people that are willing to, you know, put in their own research to help me, which in turn helps the client and it helps the whole job run smoothly, and
yeah.
without having that strong relationship, like I wouldn't be able to do any of that.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And like a lot of trades, a lot of builders do, don't they? They just, again, like everything comes back to pricing. Like if you don't know your numbers, don't know your data, you're not pricing your jobs accurately, you're constantly being just doing whatever you can to try and get a little bit more cash in the door. And a lot for like reality is that for a lot of builders, that is chopping and changing trades all the time, trying to get a cheaper price, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, or yeah, like changing suppliers or um, like definitely like it was a big learning curve building my parents' house because I had a couple of mates that own a build. And I was like, how much did you know, pay to own a build? And they're like, oh, yeah, this much. And I thought, oh, okay, we'll add, I think I added 100 grand on. And I was like, that should be plenty. And I like obviously did it with like no margin or anything like that, But yeah, it ended up costing a hell of a lot more. And like I tracked my time and everything. So from there, I was like, oh, shit, all these things that I didn't consider, you know, tasks that I hadn't really had to worry about before because it was never on me. Like, you know, the delivery truck came one night and craned 2 pallets of weatherboards over the front gate onto a slope driveway and just took off. So we spent like a whole day just picking up this pile of bloody weatherboards strewn all over the driveway and stacking them neatly so we could even do anything.
Yeah.
Like I never accounted for days like that's one day on a 12-month build, like that probably happens to you 10 times, all that stuff I never accounted for. And yeah, obviously like looking at my parents' job, through a magnifying glass, I was like, man, there's so many elements of a build that you just don't think are even there. And so thankfully the one job that I, did my balls on or whatever was my parents' house and not for someone else.
Oh, mate, I could give you a lot of lessons on that one. Like, first one straight off the bat, like, yeah, friends, as harsh as it sounds, friends and family don't get special deals. Like, you're running a business, you got to be profitable. But I talk a lot about this because I think like when you do come from the apprentice and then you work your way up to a trade, and then even when you become a builder, like something that I've done a lot of reflection on, and I now use it when I'm teaching people inside Live Like Build. Like when you take that transition, you become the builder. You're on site and you're doing the work. So if things come up, or if you've been a supervisor for someone, like if you're on site, you're doing a bit of carpentry work, and as you say, a delivery comes and it's got to be moved, you just get in and do it. Or your trades come to site and they need some information, or you're helping them out with some specs, or you're doing some set out with them, like you just get it done. But then as your business grows, those tasks that you just did, and like reality is that builders, well, all builders are just taking the little bit of money that's left over at the end of the job and calling it theirs. That's their profit. That's their salary for their business, because they're not tracking all that type of stuff. And so when you have that transition and the business grows a little bit, and you might be spending a lot more time in the office, and you have either a supervisor or a lead carpenter or just a carpentry team on site doing those tasks. Now, instead of you just being there and if something's needed, you doing it, you're actually paying people to do that. So all of a sudden, instead of you just taking that little bit that's left over at the end of the job, now you've got carpenters or supervisors on site possibly costing you whatever, 40, 50, 60, 70 bucks an hour. It can add up to be a lot, and it's nothing to get to the end of a 6 or 8 month job, and you've done your ass $10, $20, $30,000 because now you've had to pay someone else to do those tasks that in the past you were doing for nothing. So it's there's a lot of expensive lessons in there when you start working for yourself.
That's a bullet I very luckily dodged or unluckily dodged. So just after I finished building my parents' house, I had a head-on motorbike crash in the bush and broke both my arms.
Shit.
And that brought my career to a grinding halt. I didn't work for 6 months at all. And then it took, probably another 6 months after that to be able to do much at all. But during that time after the accident, I was actually pricing this current hempcrete build. And, I was mentored, by a couple of other builder mates down here in Melbourne. And it forced me to price that job like I wasn't going to do anything, because I actually couldn't do anything. I was flat stick wiping my ass. So, if that hadn't have happened, I probably would be sitting here telling you that I'm doing my balls on this job.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely another way of having a look at it. But yeah, but in reality, that is how every builder should be pricing every job. Because especially as your business grows, because as your business grows, your time will become less and less on site. So you have to price every single job as if you're not there, and you're paying other people to do every task, including the supervision.
Yeah. So anyway, tough lesson, but
yeah. So mate, what's driving I'm keen to find what's driving your passion. Like in when we're doing Zara's course together, and I want to get them off you again. Like I'm at a point now where we want to go ahead and buy the moisture meter and I can't even remember what it was. You sent me a message or a link to something.
Yeah, I got like a thermal imaging camera and moisture and humidity sensors and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm ready to go. Like if you can send me those links again, we're gonna buy them. But like, what made you get that interested in this type of stuff that you went and bought those things? Because they're not cheap.
Nah, I just really take my responsibility seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just, nothing pisses me off more than paying someone to do something and they don't do it properly, and they're supposed to be the professional.
Yeah.
And so that's just how I conduct myself as a builder. And like I get fairly anxious or whatever, and I guess that feeds a lot of my passion, or that's what channels a lot of my energy into doing stuff. Because I go home at night and I think, what's going to happen if mold grows in this wall, and I get a phone call in 7 years' time? Like, you know what I mean?
Like I'm addicted to learning now. Like the reality is, like, we can't learn if we don't know. Hey, so like, I would imagine by you having these tools, and like I'm assuming the type of person you are, when you finish your job, you're going around it with the infrared camera and you're checking everything. Like that would be giving you data, wouldn't it? Like you can now change or adapt what you're doing on future builds from the information that you're constantly gathering from the checks you're doing during your current builds.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I had a rep from like Kerricol who do, like tile, glue, grout, whatever. They came out to my house yesterday, Arvo, to drop some stuff off and run me through a couple of their products. And, we were having a chat, and he was saying, like they're compiling a report on a job that's failed where the builders used multiple different brands, all really good products on their own. And it's failed. The tiles have all fallen off the walls. And it actually turned out that the prep they were doing on the substrate wasn't correct, and it was sucking all the moisture out of the glue, and you were ending up having like basically two dry surfaces touching each other, and they weren't getting the adhesion. And I was like, fucking hell, and like all these little conversations that I've had with people over the last, few years, now it's like, shit, I'm going to make sure that the moisture content of my material is correct before I do something, because, who wants to put, thousands of dollars of tiles on a wall and it falls down?
Yeah.
When it's as simple as a thing of understanding, the temperature of the room and the surface and the humidity, all these things that have an impact. And a lot of the time they might not have an impact, but the one time that they do, it's a bloody expensive mistake. And it's like, we don't have to add a hell of a lot into our day to go, obviously, go spend, a couple of $1,000 on a, you don't even have to spend a couple of $1,000 on a moisture meter, $100.
I think you do, mate. One of the things I learned,
Yeah,
so at the same time I was doing Zara's course, we took our Live Like Build members down. We toured Hind Forestry and the sawmills and everything. And I asked a question at the sawmill, like about the moisture and like what it should be on site before we plaster, because that's something I've sort of taken an interest in. You see all the guys in the States, like they moisture test their framing before they line it and all those types of things. And yeah, the guy at home was telling me like you need a good quality moisture. He said a lot of the cheaper moisture meters, they can fluctuate plus or minus 6. So
yeah, right.
like if you're trying to get your timber to whatever it needs to be, 8, 10, 12% moisture,
Yeah,
and it's plus or minus 6, it can be giving you a completely wrong answer. But
yeah. Well, the one I use, you can actually put in the species of timber.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's send me the data on that, mate. I want to grab one. But like like you said at the start, we're very different to the States, aren't we? And Europe, like they seem to be a long way ahead of us when it comes to this sort of stuff. Like most other countries around the world, including New Zealand, like they've dealt with like the leaky home syndrome and the mold and all that sort of thing. Like it seems to be something that's sort of only just now, like in the recent changes in the building code, like mold. Like now they're obviously realizing like mold and buildings go hand in hand. Like bad building creates mold, so all bad building creates condensation. Like they're starting to link everything together. So I think as builders, we've got to take it a lot more seriously, don't we?
yeah. I mean, I don't know how that. This is new information to whoever writes the building codes here in Australia, because yeah, like you said, leaky building syndrome in New Zealand, and then you can go through almost every decade in the US, there's been an issue that they've come across in building and gone, shit, we shouldn't do that. And these are issues that we do today. America realized was something silly to do in 1980. How with the internet and, what's that, 40 odd years,
Yeah.
how have we not figured it out? Like, we shouldn't be having any stuff ups here because we've let the whole rest of the world cock everything up. We should just be copying what works and not have a drama.
Yeah, 100%. What's your view on, like, I think a lot of what Australia has to deal with is because we try and have one blanket set of rules. And yet, like within Australia, we've got massive range of climate zones, and yet houses are supposed to fit. Like only in the recent changes, they've made it like some states. I know Victoria is slightly different to some of the other states now, but how can you have houses that are supposed to perform to a certain level when we're all following the same building code, when you've got like East Coast Australia, Cairns, Townsville with high humidity and high temperatures all the time. You've got Tasmania that bloody gets snow in December. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. Like when you look at the US building code and how small it can be broken down into like not just climate zones, but like geographical locations, because obviously they've got, hurricanes, tornadoes, all the rest of the nonsense we don't have to worry about. It's all tailored. Even like some municipalities have their own set code for just there. Yeah. And we've got this huge expanse of area with vastly different, conditions. And it's all the same. It's bonkers.
Well, I also find it amazing that most builders out there this would go straight over the top of their head, like whatever. Like that's not my problem. But at the end of the day, it is our problem.
Yeah, that's it. And like my wife got real upset not long ago because a chick in her mother's group said, "I hope my kid never grows up to be a tradie." And like, my missus took a bit of offense to it, and she said to me, like, what do I think of it? And it used to bother me real bad. But like obviously there's people like us, and there's a ton of amazing people in the industry, but there's a lot of people that aren't amazing, and they give the rest of us a bad rap. So it's like, if we want to be taken seriously, we all have to act, a certain way, and it can't just be like, oh, well, it's not my problem, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Well, mate, like we'll move on to that now, because I know that's something you're passionate about, and I think it ties in well. But like, obviously, I'm the whole reason behind this podcast, and like we've got Live Like Build now. We train builders in all over Australia and New Zealand, but like I'm on a mission to create a new building industry, and I think from what I see, like with guys like yourself, like the amount of stuff on socials now where there is quality people that are passionate about it, that are putting out all this advice, and yourself and Nook and is it MVH? Like a few of you are teamed up now and you got the Build Hive.
Yeah, Mark from MVH and then Matt Carlin and Dylan from Duayne Constructions. Yeah, set up the Build Hive, which currently is just really an Instagram platform. But yeah, we just wanted to create, you know, I guess like a reference for people to go to, you know, a place where people could get sort of like a little bit more unbiased advice on stuff. You know, like across the 5 of us, like we actually went to one of Mark's jobs the other day. All 5 of us caught up there, and you know, it's crazy walking around like 5 builders that all do essentially the same stuff. And you know, we're walking through Mark's job, going, "Oh, you did that like this," and "Oh, that's like that," you know, and like you know, we're taking in things from each other, and it's like, yeah, you sort of there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat, and you know, if you just sort of look at like one avenue of content or whatever, you know, you might not, you know, get exposure to, you know, other ideas or whatever. And so we thought, you know, it'd be good if like the 5 of us got together and sort of, you know, equally sharing stuff on the page and sort of build up a bit of a community, and then sort of use that platform same to try and inspire and push for some change in the industry. And, you know, it's sort of like, definitely my opinion is, if we sit around and wait for someone to legislate the change, we're going to be waiting a real long time. But, you know, having a platform and inspiring people to do better on their own accord is having a far quicker impact on the industry changing than, you know, any legislation change is going to make.
No, 100%. And it's just, I think it's amazing. Like my big thing is builders need to talk to each other. And like I get so many old blokes say to me, like, we fucking talk. Like we've always talked. What are you talking about? But they have, like, reality is they haven't. Like there might be a little bit of chit chat, but there's no deep diving. There's no sharing, like you say, details, or someone posting something and then other people getting involved and commenting. Like the more like cooks in the kitchen, the better the outcome, I believe. Like, so what like with Build Hive, like what's the idea? You're going to share just details that you do on your jobs, or and like installations? Like what's the overall plan for it?
Yeah, like it'll probably be like a lot of tech stuff like that, like, you know, details, you know, little bits and pieces here and there. Like a couple of the other boys are, you know, well, like, you know, definitely like Matty, he's not on the tools at all, so he's a lot more, you know, business orientated than, you know, guys like me and Jack, who are, you know, still, you know, very much belt on builders.
Yeah.
So he'll probably share a bit, you know, of like what he does on the back end to, you know, basically all the stuff that, you know, the few of us share amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
We just want to share it publicly. You know what I mean? And like a lot of us now are having open houses. Like I had one at the hemp house, like, and I just made it exclusively for trades and builders, you know, so we could have a deep dive into, and I probably should nearly have another one when it's finished to tell people about all the fuck ups I've had. You know, it's been a real learning curve. But, you know, yeah.
As much as we laugh about that, that's how we learn.
Yeah, 100%.
If we don't share our experiences and what we've gone through, because let's face it, like there's new products coming into the industry every bloody day now. Like if we don't share our experience and our knowledge and what we've gained from every job we do, what's the point of it?
Yeah, but even outside of that, like we've had an engineering issue at that Hemp Creek job, and you know, like when it all came to, you know, this is like 2 weeks ago, we worked it out. I was like, what the hell do I do? Straight on the blower to, you know, another builder, and they're like, right, here's this construction lawyer, hit them up straight away. They'll make sure that, you know, everything that you do in your process from here on out is 100% right by the contract. You know, like if I didn't have that network, I'd probably still be stressed out of my eyeballs wondering what the hell do I do? Who do I turn to for information? It was only that, you know, the guy that I rang had been in a similar position, you know, in the last 12 months and had all that information on hand. Like it's this, the depth of what we need to know and understand as a builder is so wild that, you know, you need to have like a good network of people around. You know, you're only going to get so much from a 30-second reel on Instagram or whatever, you know.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing with our Live Like Build business now. We had a live event on the weekend and it was a massive success, but that's the big thing we get told now. Like, it's as much as everything we've got in there, the course platform, systems library, everything we have is fantastic. It's the community. Like, you've now got hundreds of builders that there's no judgment. There's no, it's just a safe environment. Like, everyone's vulnerable. They talk about situations exactly like you're just talking about. Like, everyone shares their knowledge, shares their experiences, and everyone gets input in, and that's how you get great outcomes. And it's just like, I think it's better for the entire industry, but what probably excites me the most is it's better for all of our clients. Like, at the end of the day, our clients are going to be getting better products if we're all sharing information and all striving to improve the quality of the jobs we do. So
Yeah, 100%, and a way smoother process for them. Like, I think the tide's definitely changing. Not just builders being professional, but like, you're starting to see now a lot of the trades actually running a proper business. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, mate, we'll start to wrap it up. Just one last thing I'd like to talk to you about, because obviously it's something you'd be getting, I'd imagine, but so many people I talk to are afraid to follow their purpose or their passion, especially when it does come to things like sustainability and healthier homes and that type of thing. But like, I'm a big believer, like, whatever you put out there, you're going to personally connect with the right types of clients. So have you found by putting it out there on your socials, being passionate about what you do, educating people, that you're now starting to attract clients that actually want what you're going to deliver them?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, yeah, like, I had a period in my career where, I was just working around numpties or whatever, and I actually used to tee off quite a bit on Instagram and have a good rant. And a few people loved it. And it's actually Hamish from Sanctum pulled me up one day and he's like, mate, like, try and inspire people to be better. And I used to then have to like run it past him before I would put shit up. And he's like, nah, like, focus on inspiring people to be better. And I did. And, like, it's been amazing, for a whole range of reasons. And then, yeah, I just sort of, definitely with projects now, like, I say no to a fair chunk of stuff. And, like, I don't have a website. I don't really have signage on anything. All my jobs are in the middle of nowhere, so no one's going to drive past anyways. So
on, mate.
it's really like an organic, the right people seem to be coming in now, which is bloody great. It's like real nice to be working with other people who are passionate. And if people come to me and they want to do a project together or whatever, and they don't seem passionate, even trades, if I hit a trade up, and they just seem like it's a job they do just to pay the bills, I'm just not interested. And once you surround yourself by people with the same mindset, it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, well, you and your business are only going to be ever as good as what you accept. So, like, that's a good attitude to have. But mate, we'll wrap it up. I really appreciate your time. It's been a cracking chat, but I normally wrap it up by saying, how can people get in touch with you? But you haven't got a bloody website. You don't have any signage. Like,
I bloody had my socials hacked too a couple of weeks ago, and I bloody lost them all, and I only just got them back. So it's really just Instagram.
Actually, just touch on that quickly, because I saw your stories on that, and it's actually made me pull my finger out, and I'm actually going to contact the guys you tagged in your story up here in Brisbane that helped you out, just to see what we can do to be a bit safer. But can you just really quickly run us through that? What happened?
Oh, yeah, I just used the same nonsense password for a lot of things, and eventually the hackers got into my email, and through my email they shut down my social media. If you ring the guys there, they'll give you a whole heap of stories about what the different hackers do once they get into all your stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, got onto those guys pretty quick, and we sort of locked everything down, and then it looked like I wasn't going to get my socials back. I actually started again. And then, as a stroke of luck, potentially one of the, complaints or whatever we lodged to Instagram about my accounts went through, and they popped back up, and then, back onto the cybersecurity mob, and they were able to retrieve it for me, which was nice. But, big wake up call. I sort of just lived in ignorant bliss that, it won't happen to me. I don't click on any links or do any of that nonsense, so I'll never get hacked. But, they got lots of ways of hacking you, and it's actually really daunting when they, they give you a big report of like all the times that your data's been breached and what they've had access to and what they do with it.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, it's all locked down now.
It's all done and dusted. So what for anyone that wants to check you out and see your stuff, it's just Sanford Building on Instagram.
Yeah, just Sanford Build Co on Instagram, or I guess now it'd be good if everyone headed over to the Build Hive on Instagram as well. Check us all out there, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
So what is this Build Hive, all one word?
Yeah, the Build Hive, all one word. All
right, awesome. We'll get Shay. He can put some links on the podcast when it goes out. But mate, like I said, appreciate your time. It's been a cracking chat, and keep kicking goals.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, mate.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelifebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.